What's real is the fact that I'm not 100% this week. All this weather changing and everything, I just woke up on the wrong side of it this morning. So a shorter show this week. I'm going to power through it, though. I've got the best damn team in the podcast game, though, and they're going to carry it through this week. On another edition of Longhorn Blitz with Horns247.com, I am Jeff Howe as I reach for another cough drop. Let me go ahead and bring in the rest of the team just to get that out of the way. He is the master of the soundboard, the drop machine extraordinaire, the man behind the glass. If it were not for him, this show would be awful, even worse than it already is.
This is true.
Matt Butler. What's up, Matt?
Oh, not much, man. It was like a couple weeks ago you were eating beef jerky. Now back to the cough drops. That's a big drastic change.
Vitamin C, man. Vitamin C.
Need all you can get.
It's the weather change, it's the
Overdose
allergies, it's all of it just taking a big dump on me today.
That's a bummer.
Good
Nice way to
visual.
put
I
it,
did
too.
not
A
want that
visual
but
of
thank
the
you for
cedar
that.
tree shaking, but instead of that yellowy stuff, it's a powder of dust.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. A man who, I don't know, Rod, do you struggle with allergy issues?
I do not. My girlfriend has it really, really bad. Every now and then I'll get like, I don't know, I'm just like itchy eyes, itchy like nose stuff. But other than that, I'm fine. I don't deal with it. Thank God I don't. I mean, but most of the people around me, including my girlfriend, like she's miserable right now because of the cedar fever. Apparently. Yeah. I don't deal with it at all. I feel bad. But yeah.
But he doesn't deal with allergies. That's why he's
Not
a
at all.
Renaissance man here on the show. Man of many trades.
Listen, I got my own crap to deal with. Trust me.
That he does. Allergies not being one of them, though.
Yeah,
He
allergies
is-
just ain't one of them.
He's the Renaissance man of the show, our lockdown corner here on Longhorn Blitz, a lifetime Longhorn 2002 UT All-American, 2002 semifinalist for the Jim Thorpe Award, fourth-round draft choice of the New York Giants in 2003, spent his NFL career with the Giants, Lions, Bears, Bucks, Broncos, and a year with the Hamilton Tiger Cats of the CFL. When he was done with football, got himself back to the 40 acres where he earned his degree. If he had a T-ring, he would wear it proudly. He is a card-carrying member of DBU, though. Number 21 in your program, number 1 in your hearts, Mr. Rod Babers. Rod, I just got this crazy idea. Remember, we talked last week about Letterman jackets and how J.J. Watt did the Texans Letterman jackets. You need to get with, like, Michael Huff and Ahmad Brooks, kind of the deans of DBU. And you guys need to come up with, like, an actual card that DBU members can carry with them.
Like
you
you
know
throw
how-
it down like a business card.
You know, you know how Starbucks has, like, my wife has one of, like, the gold Starbucks cards.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Like, get you
No
like
doubt.
a DBU card that looks kind of like that.
Like the restaurants have like the black card where you
Yeah.
can go in there and you can get anything you want at any time.
Yeah.
Like I've heard of those. Like
That just be what you flash when you have to go into the
yeah.
stadium.
They
Like,
may be like things of folklore and legend, but you're right. That's a good. Because then you heard like Chick-fil-A has like a black card where you can go in there and somebody just gets to order Chick-fil-A whenever they want it.
got the black
Wow.
card.
Beautiful thing. Yeah. I don't know if it's black, but you get my point. There.
It's like
Every
Amex,
restaurant has
the
those
black
cards.
card.
DBU should have their own card.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is a good
I
point.
say card-carrying member. I mean, but
And then you can get access to any place on campus that you need
Yeah.
to with your card. I like that.
maybe you should go above Huff and Brooks. Maybe you should call like Johnny Johnson, get with Jerry Gray, and
We could.
see
we
what
could
you
do
guys
this.
can do to design you a DBU card.
That's
So
true.
you
We talk
actually-
to Vance.
So you literally can be a card-carrying member of DBU.
But do that. Then we got to get it cleared by Tom Herman. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yeah, no
Everything's
licensing
now got to
on
be
there.
cleared by Tom Herman. Okay.
That it does. That it does. Not a lot going on tangible to talk about, but a lot of moving parts here. Recruiting is starting to wind down. Got as of Wednesday, we'll have 2 weeks, gentlemen, until National Signing Day. Winter conditioning, school, all that fun stuff started today. So hopefully, and I don't mean to make a lot of this, hopefully winter conditioning goes better at Texas to start out than it has at Oregon. Have you guys seen that story?
Yeah,
That's
we
a very sad story.
Rod, I want to get your take on this.
Yeah, it's sad.
The conditioning now is it seems more year round in terms of being mandatory than it was even when you played on the 40.
Yeah, and then there's always the not mandatory workouts like it's
Like
not
the
mandatory.
voluntary.
Yeah,
Voluntary.
voluntary workouts. That's what they call it. Oh, what a crock, the voluntary workouts.
Yeah.
Right?
yeah air
Yeah.
quotations.
You skip one of them voluntary workouts if you want to.
see where you end up.
No, I mean,
Right?
look, there's an expectation.
But no, yeah,
of
exactly.
College strength conditioning workout should be hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
You should have to push yourself. You should push. Coaches will tell guys all the time, you're going to push yourself further than you thought your body could ever take you.
You shameless bags of atrophy.
But I'm going to go ahead and guess, Rod, that I'm going to guess there weren't too many times under Jeff Madden where you felt like your life was in danger. during
no,
workouts?
but I mean, listen, I don't. Okay, listen, I don't know where the line is because I really don't. I wish I could tell you. And I continuously for years, about 15 years, I believe, pushed myself to that limit. I mean, I really did. Like there were
beyond,
and I got used to the wall. I got used to getting to that wall, like that wall of exhaustion,
when
of
everybody else
physical
wants to just
exertion, when you
stop
feel
and catch
like,
your
all
breath.
right, there's nothing more you're going to be able to do. And then I get over that wall. And, yeah, and then, you know what I mean? Like, and I overcome that fear of it. So I listen, they have to make sure they put the necessary precautions in place because safety of the student athletes is the number one priority. It's got to be. It's got to be. All right, these are young men. You're talking about amateur sports.
Yes.
All right, you ain't paying them. At least take care of them. All right. But I will say, man, I remember I remember weight vests. I remember the whatever they were, 50, 60, whatever they pound weight vests.
100-degree heat.
In the 100-degree heat, in a sand pit, running 1,000-yard shuttles. And I remember at one time as like a freshman thinking, oh, this is
Crazy.
I don't think I'm gonna make it. I'll just keep going as much as I can, but there's a chance I may not make it. I will venture forth into that great unknown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
But that's part of it. But there had to be signs because I was never around any. And like I said, I was around guys that quit. There were
Yeah,
guys,
I mean-
guys that walked the hell out. Done. They left. I'm done. I'm not doing that. Ask when Mad Dog first came. Ask Brooks about when Mad Dog and Matt came in his
We've
first
heard
year.
so many of those stories from different. It's like y'all
Dude.
waxing back to nostalgic, talking
And-
about those workouts
and
and ingrained
you
in
know,
your
and
mind.
I had guys throwing up all around me.
Yeah.
I had guys that had to be, walked off we had to help them
Like
they had to
carried
be
out.
dragged off the field. I remember those times, and I remember thinking to myself, yeah, this don't seem right. Something don't seem right about it.
But you're in that position that you're just doing
and they
what you
keep
need.
throwing out those words like mental toughness
Mhm.
and that you have to push through it, and that's how you get mentally tough, and it is. So number one priority has to be safety of those young men. Like I said, I never had anybody around me that got rhabdomyolysis. So that means there were signs of it.
Yes.
There were signs of it, and they did not heed those signs.
And
those
that's why,
warnings.
like, whenever, before you walked in, Jeff, me and Rod were sitting here, and I asked him about this, and immediately was like, well, the topic is like, how close is every team every day in their workouts to rhabdomyolysis? Is this an outlier, or is this the case where it's just the one or two that were the right case for the player to have their body reaction go bad and have to be hospitalized? But these are the type of things that you hear. I mean, we heard Herman preach about how hard the workouts were going to be. So that's just something that comes with the modern day, especially when you're training in these sports and know these voluntary workouts. You got to give it your all. And these kids, I mean, they're trying to have that scholarship to aspire to their dream. They're going to give it their all. That's when you're young and dumb, full of and just ready to go.
We are on Facebook Live today, and Rod, one of your former teammates, is joining us on Facebook Live, dropping some comments. Big Cat Alfio Randall.
Oh, Big Cat. What's going on, Big Cat?
Just some of his comments, just talking about Mad Dog's explosive power workouts.
Man.
Talking about Rod, something about you upstairs in the tent, Mad Dog getting the best out of everyone.
Man, I don't know. I probably missed some class or something, and Mad Dog had to take it out on me. I mean.
And Big Cat's going to have to explain this one, the three-legged dog.
Yeah, you got to explain it. I don't remember the three-legged dog. Oh. I wonder. I'm not sure exactly.
Almost like the bear
I remember
crawl?
the bear crawls. I remember crawling before you walk and all that. I mean, it was tough. I know. I mean, Mad Dog was a beast, but Mad Dog was about mental toughness. He keep throwing it out there.
Right.
So there's got to be a line, and yeah, Matt's hit it on the head. I mean, I wonder how close. Hell, I came to it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, and like everybody's
And
bodies
voluntarily came to it. 'Cause
react
I wanted
differently.
to get better.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like
so,
I wanted to be the best up there. I remember pushing myself to that limit. Yeah.
and it makes sense that it all came on the one of the early workouts where you had been off for some holiday time, some bowl time, and then a player's come back and have something like this happen, that's when normally you'd get that quick shock, not in the shape that they used to do. It's doing what you normally do, but when you're doing it the first time, when you haven't done it for a long time, get yourself in trouble.
Yeah, the strength and conditioning coach. Remember, what did Tom Herman say? That his two most important hires are what?
The strength conditioning coach and his defensive coordinator.
Boom. Strength and conditioning coach spends more time with the players than any other coach. In the offseason, they can hang out with him, and during the season, they can hang out with him when other coaches cannot.
Right.
So, man.
He called, not to cut you off, Rob, but he called the strength conditioning coach. Yes, the culture coach.
Yeah, so they do set the culture, which means they do have to have, kind of a certain tone that they are setting with the team. But, yeah, you got to be careful, especially, as you pointed out, Matt, early on. So it had to be around one of their first or second.
Yeah, I don't know their
third.
schedule, but everybody's coming back to work this week or last week. So, yeah.
It's just, man, it's unfortunate. I mean, there have been, remember, I want
you
to say
talked about it going into
this
spring break. Remember us talking about how different it was for Charlie Strong this past spring break to be doing his workouts? What was it that you used to do them after break, now was doing in the middle of a break situation where if you change up that schedule, you can see how it can keep somebody fresh if you're only taking a few days off.
That's for spring practice. I mean, some coaches like to break it up. Some coaches like to take winter conditioning all the way up to spring break, then have the break, and then come back and start practice. Yeah. Tom Herman's doing it kind of an interesting way, which we didn't touch on this last week, but we'll go ahead and get to it now because we actually need some football to look forward to, especially I do now since the Cowboys are out of the playoffs, and I really have nothing to look forward to at this point.
Texans out, too.
Yes, Rod Babers, your Houston Texans, as expected.
Both franchises, not equally heartbroken, but still.
Hey, they both went further than expected at the beginning of the situation in the playoffs, so.
Rod.
Well, Cowboys at least got there.
Yes, I guess you could say that because,
kind of in the beginning of the year.
Good point.
Rod, question.
No, once they got Brock Osweiler, I think we thought they were going to be good.
True. But they've been making the quarterback or the playoffs without a quarterback for 5 years somehow.
Unfortunately.
Could you be the offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans and do a better job than what's been done?
George Godsey is now out. No, I probably could not. But George Godsey being out is a good thing. I think they should interview. I said months ago they should have interviewed Chip Kelly when he got fired. Whenever Chip Kelly first got fired, I said, man, they should go interview him right now. And he's interviewing with Jacksonville. I hope they try to interview him. Maybe North Turner you can throw out there. I don't know who they bring in for their offensive coordinator. That's going to be
interesting.
Tough.
But so spring practice for Texas, it's going to start on March 6th. And Tom Herman's plan is to get the first two shorts workouts because you got to have two short sessions during spring ball.
Yeah, that's one of the precautions.
Get those first two, and you can have those. My understanding is you can have those in spring, kind of whenever you want. So, because I think typically your shorts practice, your walkthrough before the spring game will be a shorts practice, but Texas will have two right before spring break. The players will go for spring break, and then you basically hit the ground running when you come back for spring break. So you're not even getting pads on really and doing any thud before spring break. It's just kind of, I would assume, instructional and install and all that stuff for those two practices, and then get a week off and then come back for spring break. So, Rod, it seems like we talk about this every spring, every offseason, because every offseason for the last umpteen years, Texas has been installing a new offense or installing a new defense or a coaching change or a coordinator change or something. Yeah. If you're a player and you're one of those guys, let's say, and I'm just going to name names hypothetically. I'm not saying this is what these guys would do. If you're a guy who you would think would be in good standing in terms of your spot on the team, like if you're a Malik Jefferson, if you're one of those type guys.
Those started the majority of the games last season.
Maybe you don't need to take this approach, but if you're let's just say a guy like Nashawn Hughes, right? Let's throw Nashawn Hughes out there, a guy who's going to be competing with 3 or 4 other guys for reps at his spot.
An older guy in limbo.
Not even that, just a guy. If you're a guy competing with multiple guys for the same spot.
Yeah, you're not considered the man at your position.
You don't really get spring break, do you?
No. Why would you do that to yourself? You got to be. I always said the reason I was hurt a lot in the NFL, way more than I played probably 5 years, coupled it all together, but I think I actually played maybe a season and a half. You know what I mean?
And you were playing sort of hurt, not even
because I had 3 shoulder surgeries. But I stayed on teams, and I believe I got a good. I don't know this for a fact. I just believe it to be true that I got a good reputation as a grinder because I never went home in the offseason.
Right.
I believe like when I got hurt, I kind of owed it to the team to
You
stay
were
up there and train.
Costanza.
So I stayed up there the whole time. Oh, I would get to know all the coaches, all the strength, the cafeteria. I know every damn body.
You're
Because I was up
Costanza.
there and nobody else was up there. I'd never go home. I just hung out up there and kicked it. And you know who loves that? Coaches.
Yeah.
Coaches love people that just hang out at the facility. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're just hanging out there kicking it. I'd have a morning workout. I'd go do something else, workout, go watch some film, go have another workout. And coaches were like, man, I like him. I just stuck around. They were like, I like his attitude. And like I said, when you are guys like Rod B was in the NFL who are competing with multiple guys for one position, hell, man, you don't have that luxury, just like you said, Jeff. And I think that applies at the college level too.
Yeah.
At the college level, I probably got past that point after my sophomore year.
Right.
But yeah, man, you don't go home. I didn't go home my freshman year because I started like 2 or 3 games at nickel, and man, I was like, oh, I want to start. I got a shot. Like I think one coach, who's that? Some coach told me, and it might have been Coach Brown, hell, for all I know, that hey, you got a chance to start. You got a chance to start next year. Just telling you. And that's all I need.
That one little carrot, you're good.
That little nugget planted to me. I was like, Mom was like, you coming home? I'm like, nope, I ain't coming home, Mom. I'll see y'all later. I love y'all.
Was it that you wanted to start in corner spot, or you wanted out of that nickel because you don't want Bull Reese sending you after like Nebraska fullbacks anymore, trying to defend the option?
Now that I did not want. Yeah, that happened too. Thank God the Big 12 was changing. And
Yes.
honestly, it was changing just as I was moving. So the crazy part about it, I could have played nickel in the Big 12, what Big 12 evolved into.
Like now.
With the spread offense. I was perfect for that nickel position.
Right.
But the nickel back then where I was going up against
Dominique Raiola pulling around.
pulling guards for the Nebraska triple option. Man, it was not good.
Robbie, what'd you weigh as a freshman?
I
remember?
came
You said you
in
got up
probably
big.
at 180, 83 or 185, and they bulked me up really quick because
You
They
said
wanted
you
me to
got up
play
to like
nickel.
205 or something.
and I was probably as run support just as much as I was in coverage in that Big 12. In that Big 12, usually they'd be like, oh, here, nickel, let's run it. At that degree, that's a different Big 12 than the one we are in today. So I probably put on 15 pounds my freshman year alone.
Because I went back and watched this fall the '99 Oklahoma
Dude, I was
game. I
thick.
don't remember if it was on LHN or Fox Southwest.
They
I
got
don't know, but I watched
replayed.
it. And I don't know if it was like the oversized Reebok jersey or what.
Dude,
but
I was thick.
Yeah, it was
I'm
it was a stockier.
Oh,
Rod
man, I'm
B.
thick out there.
at that point.
I was like, I probably got up to, by the time that bowl game in 99, I was probably up to 203.
It's
I
sort
was
of-
huge. I was like a little running back. It was crazy. And then I had to lose all that weight. I had to lose like probably 15 pounds. I got back down to 189 by the time I was the middle of the season my sophomore year when I was starting.
yeah.
I had gotten down because I had to lose that weight, man. You felt it. You feel that weight. It's amazing as an athlete how you can feel those.
How different it is.
Man, like it really, I felt slower. Like I probably could run at the max then. Or at my freshman year, probably a 4 or 5. I put on so much weight.
And then it's like
by the
it'll-
time my sophomore year, I probably was going down to low 4.4s again.
And then
But
it
just
gets
'cause of
in
that
your
10
conscience.
pounds,
Like you
you know?
were saying right there, if you feel that weight, then you may be feeling that in your mind that you're feeling that weight. That would be something.
That was Mad Dog.
Yeah.
Mad Dog, they wanted me to gain weight because they had an individual little program for everybody. So Rod B's program was put on weight. I was chunky, dog.
Yeah, no,
chunky.
that's
They
a
get you
chunky
eating like
boy.
peanut butter and jelly sandwiches all the time.
I don't. Well, no. What I used to do was I guess I don't know.
Chicken
I
fried
stole
steak.
food from the dining hall. I remember
You can
that.
tell it now, Rod. Statute of limitations
Oh,
has got
wait,
to pass
wait,
now.
They
he's
were trying to
already
come down
done
on
it.
the
All the
university
girls
and all the guys on the team, so they come into my room because they knew I had leftover food. Like, Rod B, dog, let me get on some of them chicken fried steak. I'm like, all right, here you go.
Slinging chicken fried steaks
I
out of
was.
the fourth
Dude,
floor.
all the track girls knew Rod B had that dining hall food late at night. They
You bring
come
the
over
gravy
Rod B,
up?
what you got from? Like, what they had in the dining hall. I got it all up here. Let's go. I'm telling you, I was okay.
Oh, that
So
is
if you want to go
awesome.
back to the recent remake of The Longest Yard, you're like Cheeseburger Eddie.
Let's just say I got my scholarship's worth of
There you
dining
go.
hall food.
We're also talking, and I don't know, again, statute of limitations. Rod, I was looking for a pen earlier. Matt had to get me one. Rod, you had no compunction about stealing office supplies when you were on the 40?
No, like I don't think school supplies were part of the scholarship. We got books.
I think it's covered now under like the full cost of attendance. I think it covers all your supplies.
I don't remember them like giving me like a pack of school supplies with paper and all that kind of stuff. My mom and dad like used to give me all that kind of. My dad was like I don't know what my dad was like a. I don't know why he had all these paper and supplies. It was like a teacher that was out of work, but he had all these supplies.
Aspiring writer.
Yeah, and he would give me all these like pens and paper stuff so I could. And obviously, I still write like a SOB today, but I don't remember that being part of like the scholarship. So I remember going like to do like you go to your advisory meetings with your academic advisor. It was either Gene Bryant or Brian Davis, and hell, every time I'd go, and I'd go often. I'd take a couple of pens.
Yeah,
like, boom,
for sure, you need them.
Let me get them pens. I like that. University of Texas. Oh, I like that. That's cool. You know what I mean? Yeah, I just needed pens. I need something to write with.
Well, I mean, what are you going to say?
They'd be like, why are you stealing pens? I'm like, I'm going to class. I need something to write with. Boom. Take a
you
pen.
don't want me to take notes? Okay.
Yeah. However it is. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's bad. I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong about that.
And nothing wrong with taking some pens.
Trust me, there are people that
they
took
got
more
plenty
than
of
that.
money.
All right, Rod. So real quick, your boy Big Cat responded about the three-legged dog was designed to make you quit and make your body lose all of its bodily fluids. No one wanted to do this. That's why our graduation rate was so high. If you missed class, you had to do 1,000 yards in the heat.
Is this when basically it was like a bear crawl, but you had to use one arm? Is that what it is?
That's what I was sort of picturing, but it's like, man, that's tough. That's a hoppy. It's like a frog.
I mean, Big Cat's got to describe it better to me. Big Cat, describe it better to me. I know I must have done it.
Yes.
Oh.
It sounds like your mind's purged it.
I know. I mean,
I
missed a lot of class. So not a lot of class, but I missed enough class.
Enough to have to do some punishment.
At the end of every practice, they would have a list. So Cleve would walk over to Matt Brown with a list.
Yeah,
and Matt Dog would walk up there and be like, before everybody goes, all these players need to go see Mad Dog. He'd be like, dang. You're like, man.
Just hoping and praying.
Usually you're like, I know they didn't get over to my class. I was all the way on West Campus. I know Dog them didn't get over there. Just like, Rod Babers, Bo Scaife, Montreal. It's just in the wood.
Also, some Sims and Shano added in.
Speaking of,
Little
Shanahan probably gonna get that 49ers
Yes.
job.
Big Cat says that is what he was talking about, by the way.
Is that what? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I did that. Yeah, man. I did that a lot. We can support Shep Dog. Shep was, cause they had Mad Dog and they had Shep. Shep was like Mad Dog's enforcer. Like Mad Dog would do, he was the one that gave the order, but Shep would carry out the order. So Shep was the one that actually went out there and for the guys who missed class after running. Shep was a drill sergeant. He was a straight up drill.
Yep.
Had no mercy. Just didn't smile much. Every now and then you took pleasure in being able to make him smile. Like, because he just be weighing you out. If you could drop a nice joke in there or something that makes Shep smile, it almost made your day. It was that sick, sadistic relationship.
So we got some other stuff that we need to cover before we get out of here. And, again, this is going to be an abbreviated show. I'm sick today, folks. I apologize if I sound terrible.
Sound great.
You're fighting through it.
One quick thing, though, a quick story. This came up on our site at horns247.com on the flagship message board. And it came up because I brought it up. There was a thread about crazy recruiting stories or official visit stories from the past. Rod,
oh yeah,
got a lot of new listeners, so you have to tell the story about Dorian McCullough defending Chris Sims' honor during his official visit.
I know,
which is one of the greatest stories I've heard of a recruiting weekend ever. Which, by the way, Rod, you hosted Dorian McCullough, correct?
Yeah. Man.
This is the one that Bo Scaife came on and told this story.
Yeah.
And he included all names, but then he's like, oh, wait, well, one of them's coaching right now, so he wasn't there.
I know, yeah. So, okay. All right. I'll just say members of the Wood. Most predominantly Chris Sims and myself, but Bo Scaife was there. He's already admitted that. But I won't admit if anybody else was there. I don't know. You're going to name it.
It's a long time, man.
It's a good point about that. Long time memory is hazy.
Yes.
All right? Because you're right. Thank you very much for reminding me of that, Matt. Okay, Dorian McCullough's there, so hosting Dorian McCullough. And just look for things to do. You want to show – we took pride. Matt Brown was good at it. I'm sure Charlie was actually great at it. You want your players to be your best recruiters.
Right.
Yeah.
And you want to motivate your players to get so you would put your, I hosted Derek Johnson I took pride in being a good recruiter.
You had just closed DJ the year before this happened.
Like, give me the guy you want to close on. And Chris Sims was one of those guys. Like, hey, give me the guy you want to close on. I'll show him a good
2000, 2001. It was Sims and DJ back to back. So the next year's a Dorian.
They knew we were good. They knew we were good friends in the same circle. Like, hey man, you give us the guy you want to close on. We'll make sure they have a great damn time. There will be no complaints about that, and we'll take care of them and make sure they don't get in any trouble. That was, and I'm sure every program has that, but that's part of, being one of the veteran players. This process, nobody talks about that, but that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And Malik Jefferson takes a lot of pride in it. Got a lot of Texas players that take a lot of pride in that, and they should. So we're hosting Dorian McCullough. We're just trying to show him the aspects of college life, one of those being a fraternity party. So we go to, and that we won't even name the fraternity. We go to some fraternity party on the West Campus, hanging out, and we're just kicking it a little bit, and people, they know, you notice Chris Sims. He's like 6'5". He's huge, big blonde. Looks like, it looks like Big Bird out there.
Out of a crowd.
Yeah, he stands out. So people, the ladies are starting to, turn around and boom, and so the group is starting to get some attention, and I think some of the frat guys got jealous. Number one, all right, because the ladies were starting to hang out and hover around a little bit, and one of the frat guys, they start huddling over there, and one of them starts yelling, talking smack, saying something about Chris Sims sucks. I believe was what he said, and then some other things, and I won't say it because we PG-13 on the show. But he starts yelling out stuff, and believe me, they're a little tipsy, and it's a little late. So we at that time we started, let's go, let's get out of here, guys. Let's just get out. We don't need to be here. This is their spot. We came in, we interrupted. Man, let's just go. We don't want, because first of all, we got to recruit. We don't want no trouble. Let's just roll. All right? We thought about doing something. No, let's go. So as we're leaving, out of this group of frat guys comes a bottle thrown. And I still remember to this day because I was kind of looking back when it happened.
And were y'all in a car or on
bottle
foot by this point?
Flying, and then the bottle almost hit, I won't say it almost hit skis. And then it hits the ground. And then it's like, oh, man. Yeah. Skis turns around. Big Bird turns around. Sims turns around because he's all about defending. And that's when we knew Edorian was he was meant to be a Longhorn. Because Edorian jumps to the front too. Hell, he's probably shorter than me. He jumps to the front too. We demand to see who threw the bottle. We want to know who threw it. We would have a discussion with you, and then everybody else. We won't. Nobody else will have to be responsible for what that person did. But unless we hear something, then maybe this whole group might have to pay because we don't know who did it. Somebody's got to
be coming at you.
You know what I mean? And so they start kind of backing up, and there are at this point there are like these big kind of walls around like the gate.
Yeah. To get into the patio area.
And you can move them.
Yeah.
And
temporary fence wall.
Yeah. So they, we're kind of walking back, and we're pulling them back, but they're now we're starting to exchange words. It's getting heated, and as we're kind of walking out, I want to say that one of them said something that really, really angered both skis, and he started to push down one of them walls, on the whole group.
Like you're going
guys,
Hulk
on
mode.
the whole group of frat guys. Just went Incredible Hulk on them. And started to push over the whole wall. I wouldn't help them. I believe that wall did go over. After that wall went over, we ran.
That's where eyes come up on that other end when they're sitting there and then they see him knock a wall down.
There were ladies then yelling like, "Get out! Oh my God, get out of here! We're calling the police!" And I was like, "Oh, we got it, yeah, guys, we got to get out of here. Somebody's gonna call the police. They'll call it, and they know who it is. I mean,
right?
It's pretty obvious.
It's pretty easy. The
big
blonde guy and the big black guy.
We didn't do anything, but we would obviously be the most recognizable ones. And hey, Mac Brown and Cleve Brown didn't want to hear that. They don't care about the story and who started. So you just got to answer for it. So we left after that, and that's how we knew Edorian McCullough was. He was down.
Yeah,
he was right there up front, man, ready when it all. It was probably us. It was probably 6 of us versus like 70 frat guys. It was like a scene out of 300. It was happening too. They had the big frat guys who wanted to play football but couldn't, and then the ones who just was mad because their ladies was paying too much attention to us.
But this isn't like the Bolton Army charging on Jon Snow, right? This is
Oh no, it was serious, man. But they were, they were drunken.
serious, but not to that level.
No, it
of
wasn't there.
seriousness.
I don't
Gotcha.
think. I think if they wanted to do something, they would have. They didn't. But they threw a bottle. That's what started the whole thing. That's what escalated the whole thing.
All right,
Where's
that's a
Jordan
good.
McCullough these days? I wonder.
I don't know. I'm friends with him on Facebook. But Rod, you don't exist on Facebook, so you wouldn't know anything about that.
I do not exist on Facebook.
No.
Yeah,
As we
this is
talked
true.
about last week, Rod doesn't exist on Facebook.
By
All
choice,
right.
by the way.
So we've got about 35 minutes left of showtime. Plenty of time to talk about what's going on right now on the 40 acres. And again, winter conditioning started today, so there just hasn't been a lot to talk about that's tangible, and there won't be for a couple weeks because, winter conditioning is one of those deals. It's like, so-and-so looks good, so-and-so's good. Like, it's just kind of
Staying in shape.
Yeah, just not a whole lot of actual.
Oh, there's no analysis to it.
Right,
Just-
exactly.
yeah.
You can't. There's no analysis to be done for
You could. I mean, if you can get, reports about like how if the structure of the conditioning program.
That's
like,
gonna be the important thing.
Only
and that
bad
kind of,
things can really come from it. Somebody got injured, somebody didn't show up.
That's a
stuff
good
like
way to- that's a good point,
otherwise it's just going to be they're doing what they're supposed to do.
This is true. I agree. Psychology of it all too is important. I mean,
Then this is where maybe right now though with these guys taking on a new offense, new coach, it's more about like maybe deciding figuring out what the vision is, more mental stuff than anything else than physical.
I would be interested to know, like, because in the off season there are the hierarchies of different things, and it's weird. It's almost like Lord of the Flies. I describe it as, right? Because there's no rules. Because there's not a lot of coaches out there. It's like your strength and conditioning coach, and then their assistants. That's about it.
Especially now because the assistants are on the road recruiting.
Exactly.
So yeah.
The hierarchy and the structure is really kind of set by the team itself. I mean, they give you the what you're gonna do and the exercises and all that kind of stuff. But who goes first and who is the one that who's the cheerleader that rises the team and who gives the speech when the team is lagging? All those kind of things. Who holds somebody accountable? All those kind of things that happen without anybody actually delegating or coach delegating. I mean, it happens in the off season.
You can read about their personality.
Yes, so I like to I remember the quarterbacking thing, like when Chris Sims and Major Upright, it was big, like watching them, kind of compete in the off season for the respect of their teammates.
Yeah,
I mean that is happening. Like when you're, it
and
sounds
that's why
crazy.
that strength coach is watching all that
but
stuff.
when you're
reporting.
running, gashers, they're competing, and people are watching. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if, he wins the drill and then Chris Sims gets up and starts, getting on everybody, let's go.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go. Get up. Get up. And everybody's like, okay.
Getting
Chris Sims
competitive.
is leading this group. And if you're a major, you're like, all right, you know what? I've got to make sure next drill I get it on. I mean, those types of things happen. Talk about setting the culture of a team.
Breeds an environment.
And so, with Sam Ellinger and Shane Buechele, I guarantee you, it's gonna be some of that little
There will be
subtle, hierarchy, Lord of the Flies.
It was the
type
same
stuff
thing
going
like we
on,
would hear
you know?
Buechele was like competing at, didn't want
Yeah.
to lose ping
And it's all
pong.
good. It's
Like
really
off
good
the
for the team.
Yeah, and off
Yeah.
the field, anything. It's just a lot of off-season things that can
Yeah.
form some chemistry, and make you learn about a person's, how competitive or what really, drives them going
Yeah.
against somebody.
I mean, when, because I remember there was a separation at one point between, like, Chris Sims and, I wonder when Shane Buechele and Sam Ellinger, when they do their workouts separately from the voluntary or involuntary workouts,
Yeah.
like when they just invite the team to come through, do they go together? Chris Sims and Major Upright started doing that thing separately. You know what I mean? At times, you know what I mean? And, it's kind of weird how that.
Little tiny stuff like that
Little
can
tiny
mean
stuff
a
like
lot.
that. You're like, you know what? Yeah, I did one with the team, but I'm gonna do another one over here on my own too. Like you know what I mean? Like I don't. But there are no rules about that stuff.
No.
It just kind of the team sets those rules. Like
And
the
that's when the
leaders
players
on the team set those rules.
You find out if the sport's that player's hobby too, because that's almost when it's like you're at that point that even though it's my downtime, I don't care. I still want to go do this because I love this so much.
Like, well, who's the guy that says, all right, you know what? We're gonna hang out on every Thursday. We're going to go to Alamo Draft House. We're going to go watch a movie as the position group. Then after that, you know what I mean? Like that
Little
kind of stuff.
stuff, yeah.
I mean, those things happen.
I can tell you this.
That's how the culture is set.
I haven't talked to Sam Ellinger since his the press conference he had where he signed his paperwork and everything and then sent it in for enrollment. He signed scholarship papers. It's not a letter of intent because you sign the letter of intent once, and that's starting on February 1st. So he could just sign scholarship papers, which bound Texas to him, didn't bind him to Texas. Whatever. Everybody understands the process, but from talking to him, from talking to Todd Dodge, getting a vibe, knowing the type of kid Sam Ehlinger is, Rod, you're not off base. Man, Sam Ehlinger's going in there like he's going to compete to win the job. Like, he's not going in there with the mentality, okay, I'm going to redshirt, maybe be the backup. No, and that's the kind of stuff you need. And that's why the most important person in the program right now, a lot of talk is about Tom Herman. Everybody's focused on recruiting. People want to know about Tim Beck as the offensive coordinator hire. What's Todd Orlando going to do with all these different pieces on defense? The most important coach in the program right now is Yancey McKnight, because what we talked last week, and I'll keep hammering, and people probably get sick of me talking about it. I'll hammer home this whole offseason. This is a team that understands and that's known and it's proven to itself on a given day, if they're prepared and put everything together and take the field with the right mentality, they can play with just about anybody in the country. They don't know how to do that over the stretch of 12 games or a 13th game, a conference championship game, a bowl game, what have you. And a lot of these, the majority of this group hasn't been to a bowl game, as hard as that is to fathom at a place like Texas. But that process starts with Yancey McKnight of these are the things it's going to take day in and day out for you guys to be the kind of team you want to be. You don't want to sit at home during December. You don't want to have these long losing streaks. You don't want to have all these what-ifs and what-if scenarios and thinking about what could have happened and what you could have done. That's where it starts. That starts today with the strength conditioning program. That's why Yancey McKnight is setting the culture and the expectations of this is how you will work in this program. They won a lot of games at Houston. The guys at Houston did the same stuff, so this stuff does work. Are you willing to follow it? And I don't say that to disparage anything Pat Moore did. I think Pat Moore, of the guys that came in with the Charlie Strong regime, I think Pat Moore had the toughest job. Because the strength conditioning program, from talking to the players that were around at that time in the later years under Mac Brown, when it was Benny Wiley and Jeff Madden, there were really two chiefs and two different visions and two different voices, and nobody just talking to players that were in there at that time. The toughest thing for them, what they told me, was you didn't know who to listen to.
Yeah, and they were two different messages.
Yes,
more importantly,
exactly. So, and I think Jeff Madden on his own has proven he's a good strength conditioning coach. Benny Wiley on his own has proven he's a good strength conditioning coach. It was just it's no different than what you look at Tim Beck's situation being the co-offensive coordinator at Ohio State. It was a mix that just didn't work.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and
just wasn't good for anybody. Yeah. So, that being said, Pat Moore was the voice in that strength conditioning program, and he set the standard for this is how you're going to work every day. And I think the players understand how to work. They understand what it means to work. The key is, right, and we talked about this earlier, with Yancey McKnight, they're going to figure out that there's a new limit. There's a new wall to reach and a new wall to get over. And once you get there will be a new wall to get over. That's the kind of stuff Yancey McKnight's going to do to set the culture and set the table for what's going to happen in spring ball and going forward. This period right here is an absolutely critical period for the Tom Herman era, because we talk about a roster that on paper you'd have Texas is in the conversation for having the best roster in the Big 12 in 2017. I don't think anybody would dispute that. But the goal is to take this talented roster and teach this talented roster how to win. You remember last year the Kansas game was the example I used. We talk about mature teams. Just because you're young, doesn't mean, or just because you're a veteran team doesn't mean you're necessarily a mature team. I've seen veteran teams that weren't very mature.
Definitely.
Texas was an immature football team last year. This is the maturation process. This is maturity. But this stuff doesn't just happen just because you were a sophomore, now you're a junior. Oh yeah, you're older, you're more mature. No. It's a process you got to go through, and that process starts today with the conditioning workouts with Yancey McKnight.
No, it's I don't know why this popped into my head. Kind of reminds me of LeBron James, right? LeBron James had to kind of go to Miami to become the mature person that we are. And then when he was there, you just saw the maturity process over time, even though he had all the talent in the world.
People sort of compared it to his college.
Exactly. He needed
that. It was
that.
just 4 years he left.
Yeah, that transformation and that change, that big shock. That culture shock even, and to learn how to win a championship. I mean,
being by yourself.
A lot of it just going to Miami to learn how to win a championship from people who had done it. And not that Tom Herman's he has done it with Ohio State as the offensive coordinator, not as a head coach. But what everybody hopes is that he got that blueprint, and we all believe that he all got that blueprint from Urban Meyer, and he can replicate that blueprint, especially at a blue blood like Texas, which is kind of a blue blood like Ohio State, and replicate that that formula. And that's what I think he can do that, but he can show Texas what it takes, like what Ohio State had to do, because he saw it kind of not built from the ground up, but at least with Urban Meyer there and all the steps he took in the program to turn into a championship contender.
You know what's interesting though, Rod? You talk about Tom Herman and the blueprint, and this falls into what we're talking about. Go back to his introductory press conference. One of the most interesting things he said was the blueprint has proven to work. And you look at all the places he's been. They won big when he was an assistant at Sam Houston State. Mm-hmm. They won big when he was the OC at Texas State. Heck, you remember the second year, I think he was with David Bailiff at Rice. Rice won 10 games. Like, you think about Rice winning 10 games, that's just unheard of, man.
Yeah.
They went to bowl games at Iowa State. It worked at Ohio State because Tom Herman's borrowed now a lot from Urban Meyer, and rightfully so. They do a lot of things right at Ohio State. Well, what he said was interesting, that the blueprint works. Only the people can mess it up.
I agree with that.
And talking to guys that played with Tom
That's
Herman.
why he's obsessed with getting the right people, remember?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I talked to one guy who played for Tom Herman. I won't say which school it was, but it was one of his previous stops, who said, if you're talking about Tom Herman and you're looking just at the X's and O's, you're completely missing the point in terms of what he does to a football team, what kind of culture he brings, what kind of coach he is, because it is all about the people. It's about this blueprint that through the guys he's been around, whether it's Mack Brown, Greg Davis, David Bailiff, Paul Rhodes, Urban Meyer, he's formulated this blueprint, and he proved at Houston it can work. And I think that's the blueprint. He's not going to change anything. You'll have to change something.
That's why he wanted as much from that, that blueprint as possible.
And to bring up the point you talked about at the top, Rod, that's why bringing Yancey McKnight with him from Houston, that was one of the two most important hires he could have made, and this is why, because he's the guy that's going to have a big say in, do these players understand that, yes, this is the blueprint. If I do A, B, and C, I'll get the reward.
Yeah.
That's been proven. But Yancey McKnight's got to be the guy that kind of pokes everybody in the direction, okay, you do A, B, and C, and it's going to be good down here once you get to the end, but you got to take these steps first to get there.
No, I like what Tom Herman said, and it was, I can't remember if it's the first or the second press conference, and he might have actually referred to it in both, but he basically says, and I'm paraphrasing, that everybody's teaching the same schemes. There's not really much you can do. Everybody's teaching the same technique. I mean, nobody's coming up with anything new or revolutionary. Trust me, I got all the tricks that somebody else has, and they have mine. But it is the relationships and it is the culture that is set. And the fight and how physical is all those intangibles, things we basically refer to as intangible in football, that's what sets his teams apart, or that will set this team apart. And I agree. It kind of goes back to this thing about the people and the symmetry of the staff, and why he said, he wouldn't even take the U of H job, right, if he couldn't bring Yancey McKnight with him, because that's how important to set that culture it was. So I agree with you. I think it's kind of the details is kind of what sets Tom Herman apart.
And just when you said that, Rod, I went back and looked and listened to a couple of these quick ones. And there's one, Tom Herman, where he literally was like, explains how important alignment, how he called it, is with his staff. And I think that's what you're referencing, is the fact that if they're all aligned, he doesn't have to translate that message to a new member of the staff. They can continue that continuity like you were saying. And then if you can get that to the players so they can align as fast as possible, it's an advantage that you may have over other schools that do not have that ability to have that quick cohesion, because we saw that with Ohio State. Sometimes you hear all these coaches talk about this type of stuff and it doesn't come to fruition and stuff, but like you look at that Ohio State team, how that team full of sophomores, when Ezekiel Elliott and them were all sophomores, like you had just had Urban Meyer take over. It's year 3, I guess. They had been in suspension or couldn't on violation, couldn't go in. And you saw that team grow together so fast with freshmen and sophomores. And looking back in hindsight, it makes sense that you see Herman preaching this alignment and having guys he trusts and guys that he can continue that culture. Because like you're saying, if that is what differ or sets you apart from your opponents, he had to keep that. And may be his only advantage, because you can find whatever you want in the gray areas. You can look at the same numbers and find which ones indicate success or what positions and schemes can set you up for success. But then if it's not implemented, it doesn't even matter.
I like that story. And Homes 24, I don't know which one of you guys wrote it, about the off season for Tom Herman at U of H, and
Chris Hummer wrote it.
Oh, yeah.
Chris Hummer wrote it. It was really well written. It was really good. And he basically talks about how in the off season they would have groups, and the group that performed or at least won the off-season workouts, that they would get different treatment.
Yeah, watered down eggs versus buffet.
You said basically the team that won would get bacon and eggs and an omelet bar and all this kind of stuff. Really great, eat like a king essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And the loser would get watered down eggs, burnt toast, burnt biscuits, and you know what I mean.
Don't even get butter.
Essentially. The lesson, obviously, that the world is a very different place for winners than it is for losers. But setting the culture, it's a small thing, but you'd be surprised. It's not that different from parenting. I'm not a parent, but as a parent, right, it's the little things, right? It's the small things that you got to teach the kid day to day. Who does the day to day? It's your strength and conditioning coach. Your strength and conditioning coach the day to day. He's going to be with them all the time. The position, and he said this too. Tom Herman said, I got to make sure the position coaches that I bring in the right guys, because they are the ones who are really going to implement my philosophy to the players.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, the alignment and symmetry and all that stuff is really important for him, because he's got to make sure he has the right guys that are preaching his message in the position rooms. Because that's that the culture is set in those position rooms, because that's where those players are, closed off from everywhere,
mm-hmm.
and in that strength and conditioning program.
It was like
because that's who's with those players day to day to day to day to day to day.
And it's like what we talked about at the end of the Charlie Strong era, that it seems obvious that you say, a whole is only as good as the sum of the parts. But really, when they do all have to come together, you can see whenever you might be lacking in one spot or the other. So that's where he has to make sure all 8 or 9 of his parts are good so they can become that right whole.
Another thing I love that Tom Herman brought up, and I've always said this too, and I've probably talked about it on the show before. If I was a coach and I was building a coaching staff, I want as many guys on my coaching staff who I project to be future head coaches. You know what I mean? Like I project that guy, on the right trajectory, boom, that he can one day be a head coach. And he brought it. I was like, of course. I mean, you go look at that Urban Meyer staff at Florida. What was it? It was like that.
Well, across the board too.
Maybe it was like 06.
Dan Mullen being
Dan Mullen, Steve Adazio.
Yeah.
It's Charlie Strong on that staff.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Terrell Austin.
Oh, it was loaded with so much coaching talent that would one day be, a head coach. He said that's how I would like to build my staff, because I think he got that from Urban Meyer. That's how Urban Meyer wants to build a staff with as many guys who have that, that intrinsic quality.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, you kind of see it. You can see it. It's that it quality that DKR talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know it when you see it. I mean, some guys, Mike Tomlin had it.
Yeah.
Mike Tomlin had no, Major Applewhite.
Because
Major Applewhite in that interview when you eventually like, yeah, you know what, he's got it. He's got that intrinsic quality where he kind of demands that respect among people in the locker room and players. And it's, I think when you're around it, you kind of, you have this reverence for it and this respect for it. And, you look for those guys who have that quality.
It's funny you bring up Tomlin there, because it literally, the thought in my mind first was, well, it reminds me of those Walsh trees that came down to the Grudens and Holmgrens and Andy Reeds. But then where'd that come down to? That Gruden stuff with Tomlin and with Raheem Morris and those guys that were at Tampa. I mean, what? Tomlin was in his 20s coaching you, was he? Mike
Tomlin was the DB coach.
Was he like 27 or something, 29?
Yeah, Monty
He was like your age.
Monty Kiffin was the DC.
Yeah.
And Raheem Moore, remember he ended up being the head coach at the Bucs at one point.
Mm-hmm.
He was like the quality control guy in that room. A lot of good football talked about in
and
that
those
room.
trees, though, I mean, it only makes sense that, it'd be great to have coordinators, but the most well-rounded situation. So when you're sitting there game planning, talking football, it's a guy that knows all aspects of football.
All right, we'll keep track of that. And again, Tom Herman did say at his press conference, he tell guys that have aspirations to be a head coach. He said Stan Drayton has an aspiration to be a head coach. We know Todd Orlando. Hopefully, he's here more than a year. Yeah.
No, he does. Yeah.
And Tom Herman said he wants those guys around. He said, if you're not trying to be a head coach, then why are you really doing this?
Man, I agree with
So,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the answer to that question. Everybody gets that question in an interview. What's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? Well, the answer is simple. You know what I mean? Boom. It's like when you're dating a girl and her mom asks you, hey, what are you planning on doing with my daughter? The answer is simple. I'm going to marry your daughter.
Yes.
Even if you're not.
Yeah.
It's your mom.
I
She
love
said,
her.
Hey,
I'm gonna
what are you doing with
treat
my
her.
daughter? I'm going to marry your daughter. Oh, all right, great. What do you want to be in 10 years? I want to be a head coach. All right, done. It's easy.
What if you just told the truth to the mom?
No, yeah, really, I don't know, but the sex is good.
Yeah,
You don't
no,
wanna
it's
say
not
that.
going to work. Just like if a coach said that.
I don't know, but I like the paychecks, man.
Yes, that's good, man.
Bad
I'm
answer.
Getting our whole workforce working for free, and I'm making millions.
Bad answer.
Yeah, okay. We'll talk some recruiting. People are getting mad on the Facebook Live, and I'll just say this:
What do you mean?
Mad at what?
we do the Facebook Live in conjunction with the podcast. So we just kind of want to bring everybody kind of what we do on the podcast each every week. They're not like some people aren't liking the stories, or I'm sick,
Well,
I should go home.
everybody's
well, no,
not happy.
I'm not getting on everybody. I'm just saying.
Well, I just said they aren't all happy.
Well,
That's okay.
I'm just understand one. This is a podcast first and foremost. You get us on iTunes, am1300thezone.com. We've had this podcast going for what, guys, 4 or 5 years now.
May
So,
6, 2012.
This is kind of just what we do. We just sit around and talk shop for an hour and a half. Two, we will talk about recruiting here in a second, but understand we're not going to give away premium recruiting information. You can go to horns247.com and get that. We've actually got a good deal right now. You sign up for a 1-month membership, we'll give you 2 for free, so you can get pretty much your whole spring paid for. So we're not going to give away premium recruiting information. So we'll get to recruiting, but just understand, yes, we do like to tell stories. We do like to have a good time. We do like to kind of shoot the breeze a little bit. That's kind of what this podcast is. So it's not necessarily for news, notes, and nuggets. You can get that on the site. Rod talks about it on the show. So there, I said my piece.
Yeah, whole website devoted to it.
Well, I do want to talk about recruiting just from the standpoint that we've got 2 weeks left, and there's about, I'd say, seven spots left to fill. And I don't know how these spots are going to get filled, man, because you look at some positions, we know this right now. Quarterback is done. They're not going to take another high school quarterback in this class. Sam Ellinger's the guy. That's not saying they won't take a grad transfer if something doesn't pop up down the road, because I think that's definitely – look, we've seen Tom Herman. He was in touch with Jarrett Stidham, from what I was told by people at U of H, and I published this several weeks ago, so I can talk about it now. Kyle Allen had kind of taken a heavy class load just in case Tom Herman went somewhere else and the coaching hire wasn't to his liking at U of H. He had the option to go somewhere else, but I've been told he's going to stay at Houston with the Major Applewhite hire, that he's comfortable with Major. So we know that Texas has kind of at least gone down some avenues to try to get some insurance behind Shane Buechele. Not to say they would get a guy that could come in and do it like Russell Wilson did at Wisconsin or anything like that, because I don't think that guy's going to be out there. But just a veteran guy who at least in a pinch could get you through a game.
Like
or
a Clint Trickett.
could do a spot start.
A
Maybe somebody.
Yeah, he left Florida
Serviceable
State
is the
and became a
whatever
starter or
label.
something.
He's a serviceable
right.
quarterback.
So
Sound like Kyle Allen just didn't want to be with Lane Kiffin.
So we know they're done at quarterback. We know they're done at running back. Tennille Carter's on campus today, his first day of class. Tennille, good luck getting everywhere in the rain.
Saw
So-
Michael Griffin back to class.
Michael Griffin's back in school.
Yeah,
really.
finished. He had one more semester to go after his NFL
Yeah.
career. So he's back. Today's his
Nice.
first day
Good
back
on
in a
him.
decade.
Tennille Carter, Sam Ellinger, and Josh Rowland, the kicker, all three on campus today. So good luck, guys, getting everywhere you need to go on the 40 today in the rain. We know they're done at running back. Daniel Young, Tennille Carter. We know they're done at tight end. I love this tight end class with Cade Brewer, Reese Lato. Reese Lato could be the sleeper of this class. I just think he's horrifically underrated and undervalued. So Texas and Reese Lato could be the answer at tight end. Rod, how have we spent the duration of this podcast talking about Texas finding a 5-tool tight end? Like since from day one.
It predates before
Probably,
it.
I was going to say, probably as long as we've been doing the podcast.
As
we've been
long
talking
as
about
we've
the tight end
known each
position.
other.
Yeah.
Like 2008,
It's
2009.
the it's an endangered species on the 40 acres, pretty much.
Reese Lato could be the guy. So quarterback, running back, tight end, done. In the secondary, I think you're looking for a corner. I think maybe 2 if the right guy comes up. Kicker, we know they're done. So where does that leave you? Wide receiver. Well, we know after last night, Omar Manning solid at TCU. It looks like Charleston Rambo is going to stick with Oklahoma. And we've been saying for weeks that was going to be a really hard flip. So we think they want to take probably 2 more wide receivers. Where are those guys going to come from? Defensive line-wise, they brought in a couple of JUCO guys over the weekend, offered one of them because and people look at the depth chart and say, you loaded up on D-line last year, why do you need guys? But you look at the body types, right? Laurel Murchison is a JUCO kid from North Carolina, 6'4", 277. Jamari Chisholm's a JUCO kid from Oklahoma, 6'5", 280. Rod, in this three down look, this 3-man front, Texas is going to run, and there'll be multiple. They'll shift it around, and with a guy like Malcolm Roach is one of your outside backers, you can do some of that. Yeah. In this 3-down front, that 4-eye, you think about when I think of a 4-eye, the Texas fans who could relate it in recent terms, you think about Cedric Reed in 2014. Ced Reed was 6'5", played at 272 as a senior, long arm, could hold up against the run. You can move him out on passing on rush downs. He could get after the quarterback. That's the kind of guy. And other than Charles Omenihu, you don't have any experienced guys behind him that can fill that role. And this isn't a knock on Charles Omenihu at all, because I think Omenihu's got really good upside. He's added weight. I think this is a really big spring for him. But you need depth at that position. The only depth guy you have right now is Andrew Fitzgerald, who redshirted last year. So if you can bring in the JUCO guys at 4-eye, more power to you. I like that move by Tom Herman and staff. Linebacker, we know they're recruiting Gary Johnson from Dodge City Community College. See, Tom Herman's not afraid to dip his toe into the JUCO recruiting pool, and I like it. I dig it because Texas has had success with JUCO guys recently. You think about Donald Hawkins is still in the NFL. Jeff Swaim's on an NFL roster. Quincy Vassar wasn't a problem while he was here. Blake Whiteley is going to graduate in May. Then he'll try to continue his career elsewhere because injuries just didn't allow him to do that at Texas. Tristan Nicholson, Brandon Hodges on the roster right now. Really, other than Desmond Harrison, and even Brandon Moore, the one semester he was at Texas was productive. He was in the D-line rotation.
That's a damn good hit rate. Not much of a bust percentage
but
there.
There's some when you have when you have a certain philosophy for a really, really long time, it takes a while to change. And Mac Brown didn't need JUCOs, and Texas never even considered JUCOs. I think most JUCOs knew that Texas wasn't even going to consider him. And later on, when Mac Brown revamped his entire coaching staff,
desperation.
Then you saw them sort of dip into the JUCO pool. Charlie Strong did it a little bit more. Tom Herman's doing it a little bit more
out of necessity.
Yeah, so it just takes a while. It took a while to change that kind of culture of it.
I'll have a story up probably today. The JUCO stigma at Texas should be gone. It's going to be a lot of
and I don't think Mac had a stigma about it. And maybe he did.
Just had a luxury.
I think Mac just didn't need it.
Yeah.
It really just didn't need it.
Not at the beginning, and then he even said it, that you didn't need to at Texas.
He didn't need it. Yeah, he didn't need it.
You're getting 5 stars across the board right now in top classes.
But I'm with you.
Got to fill
it's talent,
holes
so I'll
now.
Exhaust every option to get
Oh,
talent.
yeah, you don't look it down upon it, definitely. And it's almost, some cases, it's like a matured player that just, happens to found himself in a situation.
It's the same thing with the support staff, right? Mac Brown did not want an arms race. He admitted that. I didn't want an arms race. He actually went to the coaches and just wanted more restrictions and regulations on it. So Texas is a little bit behind on that in support staff, only because that was his philosophy for a while that they didn't really want to do that. And
then the Joneses catch up.
Yeah, well, in facilities they did it, but not in support staff. And, so now it's going to take a little while to catch up, that's all.
So you're also recruiting Caleb Chason out of North Shore. I don't know, you love you some North Shore guys. Caleb Chason out of North Shore just got his 5th star from 24/7 Sports today.
It's an awesome name.
He's the 11th ranked player in the country. One of the best pass rushers in the country in this class. And, man, Rod.
Got his 5th star. How many 5 stars?
32 at 24/7 Sports. And in the composite, there could be more depending on what the other rankings. But
that's got to be a big deal when you get a 5th star. I don't know. I'm sure it is.
No, it is.
32 There's only 32 guys with it.
Well, it's just the thought is.
In the state or period?
Period. In the country.
Nation.
Wow.
The thought is follow the NFL draft. There's 32 first-round picks. You got 32 5-stars. And, of course, there are other guys that could have definitely
But I like your definition of a 5-star. Yeah. Or at least what has always been right. That basically
most likely to project
to an NFL player.
Yeah, my interpretation of it is, does this guy project down the road where you can see him being an NFL first-round pick?
I like that.
Not necessarily.
Caleb Chason's one of those guys.
Now, sometimes those guys can be your best impact freshman, but not always will they need to be that.
So Chason's the big fish you're chasing. Gary Johnson's the top JUCO inside linebacker in the country. But really, other than those 2 guys, like I said, if you're going to fill 6 more spots, maybe even 7 more spots, what's going to be really interesting, Rod, is they're going to have to really go deep into the film room and evaluate some guys at wide receiver, at offensive line, because they just offered Stephon Zabier from Westlake, who as one of those guys, the ceiling is really, really high with that guy. You know, he didn't play as a senior. There were the age concerns, the eligibility things. The UIL ruled him ineligible. It wasn't any kind of discipline issue or, grades or anything like that. But a really, really high ceiling. Was outstanding as a junior and is still relatively new to learn an offensive line. So if Texas were to get him, and I wrote about this on the site with Derek Kirstead, the young man from San Antonio Reagan. Texas is finally in a position where you no longer have to play true freshman offensive linemen out of necessity because you have nobody else. Finally got some depth. You've been able to redshirt some guys.
Yeah.
Now you've got a nice mix of veterans and some young guys who, DeLance and Okafor didn't play a ton last year. DeLance hardly played at all, but at least they've been on the field for a game, and you can bring some other guys along. Think about it, we're not even talking about Patrick Hudson, who was the top O-line signing in the class last year after he came over from Baylor, which is drama for another day.
Past the growing pains phase of that O-line, like you said, where you're playing freshmen out of necessity.
It's taking a long time to get there, man.
It's taking a little while. Well, I mean, Texas, talk about things that have been tough to break. We got our first NFL caliber offensive lineman, starting in Connor Williams in what, 8 years?
Yeah, Tony Hills went in 2008.
You know what I mean? Like that's something that's been tough to break, tough to tight end thing. Some of those things are just tough to break for some reason. So I think it's taking a little while to get out of that rut.
And let's just so nobody gets offended. You're talking about legitimately
draftable.
no brainer going to be a draft guy because Trey Hopkins and Donald Hawkins are still kicking around in the NFL.
Yeah, drafted.
They carved out a nice niche for
themselves. Just no players drafted from the offensive line. It's Tony Hills.
Yeah. Right, Tony Hills in 2008. So Tony Hills was a senior 10 years ago. That's
we
talk about the tight end drought. The O-line drought has been one. I don't think
wasn't he a class of 2003 recruit? Like that's how long it's been.
Yeah, I believe he had a gray shirt. I think if I remember correctly.
That's the last time Texas had a guy to get drafted.
I could be wrong on that, but. Rod, I was just going to ask you something. I totally lost my train of thought. Something O-line related.
T. Hills.
No, Kent Perkins. Do you think Kent Perkins gets drafted or no?
I'm not. I don't feel confident answering that question actually because I haven't done enough research on it.
Not draft time for you yet.
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, I know people are diving into it already. I have not. So I apologize.
When do you start your draft research?
I don't know. I'll probably start it up in a month or so after the Super Bowl.
This is what I love about Facebook Live. Big Cat jumps in, noting that yes, he was a Mac Brown JUCO guy.
Yes, that's right. He was
the only one.
From Alfio Randall to Donald Hawkins and Brandon Moore. That's how long the gap was.
I forget Big Cat.
So that's what 99 to 2010. There weren't any.
Well, Big Cat was 2001.
Okay.
Because he signed in 99.
Big Cat was in my class.
Came back in 2001.
Yeah.
And then Donald Hawkins and Brandon Moore in that 2012 class. A full decade had passed.
Man,
I went down the JUCO road.
Wow. Yeah, but you know what? That's how good Big Cat was, too. Because Mac did. I don't know what still calls him Big Cat.
Well, he shouted you out on Facebook Live saying shout out to Kool-Aid. So I guess nicknames are still sticking.
H-Town. I knew Big Cat long time.
H-Town is one of those towns where you really don't even call anybody by their name. Everybody has a nickname, sort of.
Yeah, Big. Yeah, I knew Big Cat. I'm pretty sure I knew Big Cat, but before I got to Texas.
But the bottom line is on recruiting though, it's gonna be really tough to get some of the high end guys that are still on the board that Texas has a chance to get. They're gonna bring in. Jordan Pouncey's a wide receiver from Florida. Somebody's asking about on Facebook Live. Miami is going to be really tough to beat there. But it's not that this class – if Texas ends up in this class, if you just get Gary Johnson and Caleb Chase on, it's going to probably be a top 20 class, just adding those two guys. Because like I said, you had the top JUCO inside linebacker in the country and maybe the best prep pass rusher in the country. Mm-hmm. You're doing pretty good for yourself at two really critical positions because Texas needs help. Depth at inside backer, and you can always use guys that can get after the quarterback.
Yep.
The issue is that some of those positions, wide receiver, offensive line being two of them, you're really going to have to dive deep into the film room. And if Texas does pluck a couple of guys that maybe you haven't heard of until a week before signing day, then it's going to be a situation where – and those are two positions. I didn't mention wide receiver. Those are two positions where Texas does have some depth.
I was going to say, wide receiver, man, they got a ton of guys.
You're not going to really know how the evaluation was until 2 or 3 years down the road at both those positions. But at least you got the luxury now that you could do that. So Look, this is a transitional class. It was going to be kind of a mess to put everything together, and I actually think they've done a really good job
of addressing needs. I mean,
Yes.
think about that. There aren't a ton of like urgent need areas, but the couple of need areas that he had, he addressed them immediately.
You
Running back.
You retained your top quarterback, which you got to take one of those that can play every year,
Yep.
right? You lose Deontay Foreman, but you're adding 2 really good running backs.
Kicker.
You've got 2 scholarship tight ends, one who didn't play last year, Oquin's coming off the shoulder deal, and you got 2 of them, and one who I think could be a stud, and then Lord knows kicker needed to be addressed.
So I mean,
And with Josh Rowland, the JUCO guy, if he's really good in 2017, you know he's coming back for 18 as a senior.
Boy, he's a kicker.
Right.
Where's he going?
Very true. Didn't Janikowski declare early?
I'm sure he
Possibly.
did.
And the dude
kid
was drafted
kickers.
in the first round.
I kid kickers.
Kickers are people too, right?
And
I
that's
know,
with
right?
like 2 college DUIs also.
Who, Janikowski?
Yeah.
Man.
That guy got in a lot of stuff. They almost didn't.
That's
They
how you know
needed
you're a
Al
good
Davis to
kicker,
come.
when
Well,
you-
I mean,
you
he was
get, like, in
imported from
trouble.
Poland.
He was threatened with deportation at one point when
Yeah.
he was at Florida State, wasn't he?
Not
No, I'm not
lying.
making that up.
Yeah, because of his
He was
troubles
threatened
boozing. He was a
with
Polish
deportation.
soccer hooligan that came over to play football. Bobby Bowden knew what he needed.
I'm
no
gl-
more wide right. He went and got Janikowski.
I'm glad in college football has upgraded from Polish soccer hooligans for kickers to Australian punters who actually go through an academy. And there's a process to get those guys ready to go to college rather than
Man.
just plucking a soccer
And they're
hooligan.
awesome too.
Oh, man.
Yes.
You got to get yourself an Aussie punter.
Michael Dixon should start a run of Aussie punters at Texas. Like Texas should never have anything but Aussie punters.
Just
from
keep
here on
going
out.
back to that school. I forget the name of it.
Pro kick, Nathan Chapman.
Yeah, there you go. That guy's gonna be.
Dude knows what he's doing.
That guy's gonna be rich. Straight cash on me.
His entire country that he's just telling all the kids, hey, yeah, you don't got no hope in soccer. There's a ton of them doing it. Come on over.
Yeah, he's just
Great way to pull it.
Real quick, just to address Facebook Live, somebody asking about the odds of flipping Walker Little. That's not going to happen. And
from Stanford.
yeah, and Walker Little, actually, we revealed our 5 stars at 24/7 Sports today. And this is just the 24/7 Sports rankings, not the industry composite. But we had Walker Little as the #1 prospect in the country. He was that good at the U.S. Army All-American Bowl.
Wow.
So yes, so the #1 prospect in the country, Rod, is going to Stanford.
Yeah.
Not Alabama or LSU or Texas or Notre Dame, going to Stanford.
Good place
There's
for a
always
lineman.
a saying that if you get an offer between like Stanford and then everybody else, usually that guy takes the Stanford offer these
It's
days.
Stanford.
It's Stanford, and Stanford plays good football these days.
Yeah.
Post Harbaugh, Stanford is different than Stanford before that. I mean, I know Elway was there. I'm just saying, like, it's to the new millennials that
Right.
they're recruiting.
Right.
Stanford doesn't mean what it used to.
And here's the thing that Texas fans need to wrap their head around when it comes to recruiting. And I've already heard it from some of the national. Oh, Texas isn't recruiting very well. Two numbers, 1 record, 16-21. That's the record for this program the last 3 years.
Yeah.
When you start winning again, it'll be a lot easier to convince recruits to come play for you. Look, what people don't realize.
Considering,
like what Charlie Strong pulled off in the 15 and 16 classes it's unheard of. That's the exception to the rule.
considering the record.
When you're losing, you don't recruit that well. Even at Texas or Alabama or anywhere else, you don't recruit that well. Like it was a miracle. That shows you #1 what an elite recruiter Charlie Strong was and is, and #2, can you imagine if they had won games, the additional guys they would have pulled in?
Yeah.
In those 2 classes?
It shows you the
And what the-
talent
what
that
the-
could be tapped.
What the haul would have been this year? It's not that kids hate Texas. They just want to go somewhere where they're going to win ball games. And the kids right now in the state, and we'll talk more about this leading up to signing day, the kids in the state don't know Texas is a winning program. We all do because in our lifetimes, Rod, you lived it. Texas won a lot of football games. I've seen Texas in my lifetime. In my impressionable years from like middle school through high school into college, I saw Texas win a lot of football games.
Hey, Deshaun Watson gave a shout out to Texas when he won a national title, or at least to Vince Young.
Hell, I just saw somebody posting something from the total wins all the way back since 2000. I mean, Texas is as elite as it gets when you look at total wins. It's just, that's how good you were for the first 10 and how bad you've been for the last 5 that you can only remember what's been happening lately.
So we'll talk more about signing day. We'll talk more about winter conditioning as we get closer to spring football. We'll talk more about the team. Something I want you guys. I don't really give out topics ahead of time, but I want you guys to do some homework. Give me 1 offensive and 1 defensive player. This is for next week. 1 offensive and 1 defensive player that you think needs to have the best spring. That this program, this football team will be better if this guy has a monster spring.
I think I already got it.
No, defense may be too easy, though. I'm going to change my answer.
Yeah,
I
we'll
want
figure
you
it
to
out next
dig
week.
deep, and we'll do some real
Soul searching on this.
Yeah, there you
Okay.
go. Thank you for picking me up there, Rod. All right, it's time for us to shut this down, wrap it up, put it in the oven, but we don't do that until we close it out, as we do each and every week, until we get you Matt's Stats of the Week.
Hey, Matt, how you been?
Doing really well. Some games you can stack tonight looking at Denver versus Lakers. Want to win you some money, fantasy basketball. Attack Denver every single time. The point guards cannot defend. So that's going to be a great night for D'Angelo Russell. But Jordan Clarkson and Lou Williams going to be really solid. But on the other side, the big men in Nikola Jokic, maybe the most underrated player in all of basketball, and Kenneth Faried going to be really good plays. Jameer Nelson also a great value in that one. Looking at Toronto going to take on Brooklyn. Since they're on the road, this game may stay closer than expected, so I'm going to be heavy on Lowry and going to be looking at DeMar also across the board. You're going to look at Brook a little bit against Toronto, but staying away because of the chance of a blowout. Now, Houston taking on Miami. That's going to be a big game for the Rockets. I really don't like Harden in this matchup. He should have a decent game, but Hassan Whiteside, watch for him to go off. Tyler Johnson and Deion Waiters could be value plays in that one over Goran Dragic. And then looking over at Dallas, I really like Dirk and Darren if you need some safe plays. So that's about it for the evening, fellas. But y'all, I know we got the NFL playoffs coming up here soon. Do y'all have any predictions? What's going to be happening this championship weekend? Cowboys are out. You don't care?
Cowboys are out, I don't care.
Yeah, no.
I think Aaron Rodgers is too hot, man.
That dude's insane.
Yeah, he's insane, honestly.
So got to go against your boy.
I mean, it's hard to pick against Aaron Rodgers.
I know, man. In a controlled environment, that's insane.
I haven't seen a quarterback that hot in a long time.
Yeah,
He's in his
ever?
zone. Yeah.
Maybe ever.
It's a little bit depressing as a Cowboys fan to think about it.
And Tom Brady and the Patriots will dominate the Steelers.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, thanks for everything you do,
You
sir.
are more than welcome.
Robbie, appreciate the time and the knowledge.
Anytime, brother.
For Matt, for Rod, for Travis, who videoed it, for everybody at AM 1300 The Zone, AM1300thezone.com, where you can hear this podcast each and every week. Thanks to Matt. You get us on iTunes, TuneIn, SoundCloud, and any podcast app.
Yep, just type in Longhorn Blitz.
For the Zone family, for the Horns 24/7 family, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for downloading and listening, and we will catch you again on the next episode.
You've been listening to Longhorn Blitz with horns247.com. Remember, for the latest Longhorn news 24/7, visit horns247.com.